We've got Matador Mining, ASX code is MZZ, and they are exploring up in Newfoundland, one of my favorite parts of the world, Newfoundland in Canada. I have Adam Kiley, who's corporate development, and also Warren Potmar, who is their exploration manager, to take you through the story. Over to you guys. Welcome.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Kerry. I'm Adam, by the way, and this is Warren. Ian Murray, the exec chairman, sends his apologies. He can't attend today. He's actually travelling. Anyway, to just go through first off, who is Matador Mining? We have the Cape Ray Gold Project, which is in Newfoundland in Canada. It's an extremely exciting jurisdiction, and Newfoundland has really become the go-to place in all of Canada in recent times. We were one of the first movers to actually go there, which allowed us to gain 120 kilometres of strike along the Cape Ray Shear, which is actually the largest continuous landholding in Newfoundland along this highly prospective shear, which we know is a multi-million ounce shear. It does contain those deposits within there, which is proven just 50 kilometres up from us with Marathon Gold. We've already established a resource of 840,000 ounces at 2 grams per tonne. And importantly, with that resource, it's the 90% of it is located less than 200 metres from surface. So it's highly amenable to open pit mining. We're currently working through a pretty aggressive exploration program this year. So we've got a 10,000 metre program. We started a little bit later in the season, so the program was a little bit smaller than what we first anticipated, just obviously due to COVID. But it's been great results which have come through thus far. We made the first new discovery at the Cape Ray project in over 20 years with the Angus discovery, where we drilled approximately 20 metres at about 2.4 grams per tonne from around 80 metres. And that was a 1 kilometre step out from a known deposit. As part of that program as well this year, we've had a much greater emphasis on greenfield targeting. Warren will go through it in quite a bit more detail, but from the work he's done in only starting a few months ago, we've already identified 33 highly prospective greenfield targets. The first one of those that we identified was Angus, and it came back with obviously a new discovery. And we're planning to test a couple more of them with the results coming through before the end of this season, but it's going to be a much more aggressive program going through those targets next year. Earlier in the year, and which sort of underpins the project that we have at the moment, we did a scoping study. The scoping study is basically what a scoping study should be. Scoped out what's the potential of the project and are there any fatal flaws. That came back with really strong results. We came back with just under 90,000 ounces of production a year during the first 4 years at 2.6 grams per tonne head grade. That came back with an extremely strong payback period, as well as very robust IRRs, as well as MPVs. And it came back with a very strong operating cost as well. But what we know we need to do based on that now, we need to go out and find more gold. What the company's aiming for is to be a 100,000 ounce producer minimum with a 10-year mining life before we put this through to production. Just in terms of Newfoundland, for the listeners in a bit more detail, it really is a fantastic jurisdiction to operate in. We're 25 kilometres away from an established town. We've got massive support with the government. We've got grid power, some of the lowest in Canada at 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And as I mentioned, Newfoundland has really become the go-to place in all of Canada recently. There's a new exploration IPO. They've only released 3 drill holes, Newfound Gold. They've got a market cap of circa $700 million. At the moment. And then you've got Marathon, which has a 4 million ounce gold deposit and just recently made a new discovery as well. They've got a market cap of circa $500 million and they're located just 50 kilometres up the shear from us. So we know there are these multi-million ounce deposits within the system, and from the program we're doing now as well as in the future, we're really hoping that we'll be able to find them going forward. We've got a very strong cash balance at the moment with $12.5 million in the bank as of the end of September. That will see us obviously through this exploration season and the next one as well. But unfortunately, when you look at us on a valuation compared to our peers, we see significant upside potential. We're at a large discount to the market, and hopefully when we have further results coming through, we'll be able to close that gap as we go through. Just in terms of the board, there's been a whole new board which has been appointed over the last few months, which is just really starting to get established. Ian Murray took charge of the company in May of this year, just around the time into the scoping study. And just speaking for Ian, the reason why Ian was so attracted to the company, he basically saw this as a gold road Mark II. Massive potential all up and down the shear, just needed the exploration and the time to actually prove it up. Ian's first appointment to bring on board was Justin Osborne, who was central to helping him develop and grow Gold Road, who's still an executive director at the company there. We got Mick Wilkes on board, who was president and CEO of Oceana Gold for the best part of a decade, who started just after Justin. And more recently, we've just appointed Dr. Nicole Bell. She's a North American director. She's based in Vancouver, very experienced in fund management as well, and she's also a geologist by background. So we've now established a first-rate board for what is only a 60 million market cap company at the moment. Just a little bit more in Newfoundland. As I mentioned, it's been the sort of forgotten jurisdiction of Canada. It's just off to the side on a large island on the east coast, but it really has become the go-to place. As I mentioned, with Newfound Gold and Marathon, you've also seen now exploration companies pop up all over the place on the TSXV, with guys just pegging lands throughout the jurisdiction. So it really has become the go-to place in Canada, and we're the only ASX listed company there. We also have, as I mentioned, the largest tenure along that, the Cape Ray Shear, where the majority of gold has been discovered to date. Only 25 k's away from an established town with a population of 10,000 people. Excellent conditions, as you'd expect for anywhere in North America, as well as some of the lowest power costs in the world at 6 cents a kilowatt hour. That's really going to make this, when this eventually one day goes through to an operation, to me, we're going to have some of the lowest power costs going through. Just as comparison, if you're on grid power in Canada, you're looking at 12 cents a kilowatt hour. If we were a diesel operation in Western Australia, you're looking at about 25 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's a massive advantage that we're going to have at this project in the long term. Just the next slide before I let Warren take over from here. One of the key things when Ian came through from looking at the company, we had a good solid start with a resource of 840,000 ounces, and we consolidated a large portion of the Cape Ray Shear with 120 kilometres of strike. But what we didn't have was those next projects coming through that were going to graduate up and be the new advanced prospects and new discoveries. So it was part of Warren's mandate when he came on board, was really take a closer look at some of the prospects that we actually had, take a look at a lot of the historical information which had been unconsolidated for such a large portion of, for such a large period of time. Work first began on the project in the 1970s, but it's been all unconsolidated, and it just has been poorly tested with the drill bit. Warren's come through, he's already identified 33 highly prospective targets, with a discovery at the first one, which was the first target we've actually drilled. So we really see fantastic potential for further discoveries along the way. And from there, I'll let Warren take over to go through with the Angus discovery in a bit more detail, as well as some of the other exploration work we have planned.
Thanks, Adam. I guess I just want to kick off with a big picture slide to start with. You see two images there of our tenement package. The top grey outline shows the outline of all of our existing tenements. It's 120 kilometres from southwest to northeast. The pink dots within that are all of the drill holes within the entire tenement package. If you look at the call out box, you can see the main resources sit there with Central Zone, Window Glass Hill, Big Pond, and a little northeast of that to Isle of Mort. If you put that box all the way up to Isle of Mort, there are only 20 drill holes outside of that 15 kilometres of strike length for the entire project. If we then go and look at the existing gold and rock chip callouts, the dark blue callouts in the bottom diagram, you can see that there are many, many plus 10 gram per tonne rock chip samples along the length of the project. And when we look at the surface sampling that's been done, combined with the existing magnetics and other geological data, we've been able to identify, as I said, 33 targets along the strike length of the project. Those targets are delineated there with the coloured boxes. The pink and red targets are the priority 1, priority 2, the highest priority 12 targets that we're going to hit. We're already drilling and working on them this year, but we'll hit between this year and next year with first pass exploration. So for me as an exploration manager, 105 kilometres of this tenement package is effectively untested. It sits under between 0.5 metre and 5 metres of transported cover. Very little outcrop, less than 5 to 10% outcrop across the length of the project, but pretty easy to get through that cover since we've now implemented a new basement sampling tool. It's a person portable backpack drill that enables us to effectively get hand drilled diamond core from below the basement till, as well as till samples to help us with our exploration through cover. For those of us working that are used to working in Australia, we're using this person portable backpack drill like you'd use an air core rig in Australia to sample the basement. cover. If we look at the Angus discovery, we've zoomed in now on the area just southwest of Window Glass Hill. We've got results back now for 12 holes at Angus. The discovery hole initially was 20 metres at 2.38 grams, but we went back and sampled some shoulder material on either side of that, which has actually helped us to grow that width. The key thing there is it has a core 9 metres at 4.99 or 5 grams per tonne. So really good grades within that discovery hole. But across that area now we've drilled, as I said, 12 holes at Angus. 4 of those initial broad-spaced holes have come back with better than 10 gram metre drill hole intersections, gold. And then we drilled another section to the east. We've just reported in the last couple of weeks. Hole 143, it's 300 metres east of the Angus discovery hole, and that's another 23 gram metre hole. It's exactly the same style of mineralisation we see at Angus. This is a new style of mineralisation for the project. It's a stockwork style, which means we get bulk, broad domains of low grade punctuated by some nice high grade hits like that 47 gram metre hit in 126. And what it means is that we're no longer seeing what we see in the central zone, which is high-grade plunging chutes within the plane of a structure. This is a granite-hosted stockwork vein system, which has the potential for bulk-style mineralisation. The two are really complementary. Two styles of mineralisation are really complementary to the project in the long term. Thanks. In terms of what we've been doing so far this year, the focus has been around Window Glass Hill and Isle of Morts in terms of drilling. We've done extension drilling as well as infill drilling at Isle of Mort and Window Glass Hill, and the exploration drilling at both of those, which led to the Angus discovery. The second target being drilled and effectively being rolled into the Angus discovery, giving us 300 by 400 metres of area there that we've demonstrated is mineralised, requires more drilling. But at Isle of Mort, we've stepped out 500 metres towards the southwest and drilled a new exploration target there, with results pending before the end of this season as well. Additionally, we're looking at the regional opportunities along this 120 kilometres of strike length. We've put ground teams in at Benton and at Otter Pond to do the first pass mapping, detailed ground mag surveys at Benton. The ground mag was instrumental in helping us, along with the IP, to select the Angus target for drilling, which worked out to be quite successful. And we're hoping to recreate or to repeat that success at our other regional targets. Like I said, 12 real high priority targets that we're going to be hitting in the coming 12 months. So the approach to exploration here is we have a number of high priority targets. We now have a method combined method of detailed ground magnetics, person portable backpack drilling that enables us to get down to basement, and most importantly, the use of detailed lithogeochemistry and alteration mineralogy to map the alteration footprints that we can see have halos on the order of 300 to 400 metres around the known mineralisation. And when we're drilling through the cover and getting basement samples, we can see those alteration footprints and pathfinder mineral element footprints in the basement with the backpack drilling.
Perfect. Thanks, Warren. I suppose this slide here, just very briefly, it sort of speaks for itself. When you look at our valuation compared to a lot of our peers at the moment, we really are lagging. When you consider the prospectivity of the ground that we've got, what we already have existing and what we know about the project, which was highlighted in the scoping study, as well as the resource, as well as finding new discoveries, we really think we're lagging in terms of valuation at the moment. I'd like to think as results start flowing through from exploration program this year, as well as into the future as well, we start catching up on some of our peers there, but we really see a heck of a lot of upside in terms of our valuation at the moment. And it should be remembered as well, we're definitely not come rose. We've got $12.5 million in the bank that will see us through this program, as well as next year's program as well. So I suppose just to summarise on the opportunity and what investors could be looking for from Matador over the next, the rest of this year, as well as into early next year. For the rest of this year, it's really going to be exploration coming through. We're continuing on with the drill program at the moment. We'd expect more drill results coming through before the end of the year. Those results will continue through January as well as February, possibly then as well, depending on the speed of the lab getting the final results back. We'll also have further greenfield results coming through during those first couple of months as well. And that's really going to set the company up for what's our strategy in terms of targeting some of these highly prospective greenfield targets going into the future. And then we'll come up with the exploration strategy thereafter for the new year before we hit the ground much, much earlier next year. The expectation at the moment will be on the ground and drilling in the second quarter of next year, and with a much larger program going through as well. So just to summarise the opportunity, we're in a first world location. Newfoundland has really become the go-to place in Canada. It's not being picked up by the Australian market at the moment, unfortunately, but hopefully when results start coming through, we could quickly catch up on that. We've released a scoping study which highlights we've already got an economic project. What we're looking to do now is really grow that and make that much larger in the future. So we've got a long, sustainable mine life. We're fully funded for the next 2 exploration seasons, and our valuation is significantly lagging, both on an EV metric as well as on a PNAV metric compared to all of our peers. So thanks very much, Kerry, and we're more than happy to take any questions from investors.
I was muted. Sorry about that, boys. Warren, Adam, thank you very much indeed. And the only ASX player up in Newfoundland. Very interesting. And my congratulations to you guys. What a very strong management and board team you've got. Let's kick in with some of these questions. Does Matador have any plans in the future to extend its footprint further globally? I think you've got enough work on your hands where you are.
Yeah, listen, Listen, I suppose with 120 kilometres of continuous strike at the moment, with 33 greenfield targets already identified and probably more to come as well, I think we've probably got enough on our plate for the time being, just up and around Newfoundland.
You know what, and I think that's absolutely right. You've got to stay focused. Next question is, you've got more than 30 targets ready to drill at Cape Ray. How do you decide which one's a priority? And also they want to ask how much drilling can we expect to see over the coming months?
Okay, well, maybe I'll take that one,
yeah.
Kerry. In terms of deciding the priority of these targets, we've got a wealth of historical information from previous surface rock chipping, previous soil and till sampling. We've got complete coverage of the tenement for aeromagnetics at 100 to 200 metre scale, so we get basic structure there and some mapping. We're utilising that information to prioritise the targets. We're looking for multi-element geochemical signatures, as well as obviously gold, as well as the preferred structural host. Not all of the data sets are complete, but we basically take an approach to looking at all of the multiple variables, and where we get a lot of anomalies lining up in one area, of course, you become far more interested. Now, if you recall back to the initial slide, that said, we can do all of the smart exploration, but there's 10 to 191 gram per tonne rock chip samples out there that have never been followed up. So there's also the really obvious, easy, low-hanging fruit. So it's a combination of really good integrated geoscience, weighting the value proposition for each of our high priority targets, and doing the really simple stuff, which is going and testing these high grade surface rock chip samples.
Just while I'm talking, we have got just if you want to ask a question, please drop it in the Q&A box down below. We've got one that's just come in. When can we expect the PFS and another resource upgrade? Well, another resource upgrade, I think you've got your work cut out for you right now.
Yeah, listen, I suppose just in regards to the PFS, it's probably going to be not next year, but the year after that. There'd be no need to come out with a PFS next year, because the resource is only going to grow to a certain sort of size. So you're probably looking at 2022 before the PFS comes out to make sure it's significant in terms of the changes that we have. But in terms of a lot of the work we did in the scoping study, that was done to a high degree of certainty as well. We spent a lot of time going through that. In terms of the resource upgrade, listen, in terms of the strategy that we've taken this year in terms of the exploration program, it's been much more strongly focused on greenfield and new discoveries along the way as well. Obviously with Angus being the first one, but we're also testing the new areas up around Isle of Mort as well. So you're not going to have sufficient drilling to actually delineate resources off those areas yet. And I dare say putting out a resource just for the sake of putting out a resource would would potentially be cutting it off too early as well. So
yeah,
I dare say you're not going to be coming out with a resource off the back of this exploration program. You'd probably want to get through next season's as well, which, as I mentioned, next season will be a much larger program that we'd be anticipating to come through with compared to this year.
Guys, is COVID impacting you at all? Obviously, I'm speaking to you. You're in Australia, in Perth, and the project's up in Newfoundland. Has that given you any challenges?
Well, it's impacting Warren because he wants to get out and have a look at the rocks as quickly as possible.
Are you chomping at the bit, are you, Warren? You're just like, get me on a plane.
I certainly am, Kerry, but look, the advantage for us is that all of our field teams are based locally in Newfoundland, or a couple of our senior guys travel from within the Atlantic bubble on the east coast of the Canadian mainland. So really we've had no impediment whatsoever to our work this year, with the exception of a late startup during the uncertainty in April and May when COVID broke out, which meant we didn't really get started until drilling until July. But in terms of our teams on the ground, there's been no restriction whatsoever. It's just the geologists here that want to get over and look at the rocks that can't.
But I should just add on that as well, Kerry, we have been working a lot behind the scenes with the various governments and whatever else as well. So when we start next season's exploration program, we will have guys from the Australian team here, Warren included, going across there for a sustained period of time. That's something that we've always made sure we've done. Unfortunately, this year it hasn't happened, but that would definitely be from the start of next season and for a long period. Warren will be there as well as the rest of the geological team. Just in Newfoundland overall, Newfoundland is probably, if there is a place tighter in the world than Western Australia to get into, it's Newfoundland. They haven't had a case for longer than what it is in Western Australia. So they take it extremely serious across there. And importantly, we've got a very strong team on the ground, but it does mean restrictions getting in there are quite tight as well.
All right, you're just going to have to calm yourself down for a bit longer, Warren. Now, look, I've got about half a dozen people saying, is there a TSX listing on the cards, potential listing in Canada, dual listing?
It's something we get asked quite often. Listen, you never say never, but given where the market cap is at the moment, you probably wouldn't want it to be there, and there's no point just listing for the sake of listing. From experience, when you do a listing, you want to make sure a certain percentage of your register is actually in that jurisdiction as well. That's something we're really working hard on at the moment to actually increase our investor awareness in North America. Obviously, getting Nikki on board is a great advantage with that, and that's something we're going to continue to work on. But really, until we get circa 20+% of our register in North American hands, it's probably not quite the time for that at the moment, I wouldn't have thought.
A little bit early, I would say, guys. When we look at the government support, how does that look for you guys? Is there a lot of governments? Because from memory, I thought Newfoundland was one of those places where it was like anti-mining, and because I've got some friends that have come from there. Are they very supportive, are they?
It's actually quite the opposite. Newfoundland is massively supportive of mining, and it should always be remembered, the jurisdiction's actually Newfoundland and Labrador. Labrador is obviously where you've got Voisey Bay, and Labrador is where you've got all the large iron ore mines in Canada as well. So they're massively supportive in getting the industry actually in Newfoundland overall up and running. Our local member for Parliament as well, we did a broker site trip last year. He came out and spoke to the brokers, everyone who came through. He's also now the Mines Minister for Newfoundland. So he is massively supportive in getting this project up and going. The other point I should mention as well, just regarding Canada. Canada, it's one of those jurisdictions, people always ask, is there any First Nation issues? In Newfoundland, it does vary largely across all of Canada. There aren't any First Nation issues in Newfoundland at all. There's First Nation groups, which we've got fantastic relationships with those groups, but they're not original First Nations there. So they don't have any treaty rights like they have in places such as BC. So we work with the guys. We got First Nation guys that work on site with us, but unlike other areas, they can't stop a project actually going ahead. So that is another key thing that investors should be aware of as well.
Guys, I could keep chatting to you for another half an hour, but guess what? We've run out of time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program today. Thanks for sharing the Matador story.
No problem, Kerry. And listen, if any investors want to get in contact with the company, please feel free to send your questions through. We're more than happy to chat at any time.
Thank you so much, Adam. All the best.
Excellent. Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks, Kerry. Bye-bye.